On September 13th, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius stated in a speech in Berlin that the German frigate Baden-Württemberg and the supply ship Frankfurt am Main were sailing from north to south through the Taiwan Strait. Pistorius said, "International waters are international waters. It's the shortest route and, given the weather conditions, the safest, so we're going through." This is the first time in over 20 years that a German warship has passed through the sensitive Taiwan Strait, signaling Berlin's determination to stand with Western allies amid rising tensions. The last time a German warship sailed through the Taiwan Strait was in 2002. According to reports, the German naval fleet was participating in joint exercises with the navies of France, Indonesia, Italy, Japan, Malaysia, Singapore, the Philippines, and the United States. As early as May, when the fleet left Germany, Beijing warned Germany not to attempt to sail through the Taiwan Strait. On September 9th, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning reiterated this warning at a press conference, stating that Taiwan is an inseparable part of China. Beijing strongly opposes the German Navy's planned passage through the Taiwan Strait. It stressed that such actions are a provocation that endangers China's sovereignty and security. Mao Ning also reaffirmed China's long-standing position, stating that the waters from the coasts of Taiwan and mainland China outwards are considered China's waters, territorial sea, contiguous zone, and exclusive economic zone. Michael Roth, chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee in the German Bundestag, responded on social media platform X, supporting the German Navy's passage. He argued that this was not a provocation, but rather a clear signal to Beijing that Germany opposes any unilateral use of force to change the status quo in the Taiwan Strait. Roth previously stated that a military conflict in the Taiwan Strait would have catastrophic effects on both Germany and the global economy, making preventing war and a blockade of Taiwan a core interest for Germany. He called on Germany to follow the lead of the Netherlands and Canada in sending naval ships through the Taiwan Strait to support peace and stability in the region. Germany was once China's closest partner in Europe, nearly replacing the U.S. in that role. However, as the two nations mark the 10th anniversary of their comprehensive strategic partnership, the relationship has shifted, with Germany now viewing China as a systemic rival. As a key EU member, Germany's change in China policy not only reflects its own interests, but also indicates a broader shift in the EU stance toward China. The honeymoon period of Sino-German relations began with an optimistic view of China. In March 2014, during Xi Jinping's first visit to Germany as president, he had a cordial meeting with Merkel. The two leaders hit it off immediately, and China became Germany's largest and most important trading partner. Sino-German trade accounted for 1/3 of China's total trade with the EU, and the two countries elevated their relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership, which was almost unique to Germany. From the perspective of other European countries, Merkel seemed to side with China in the US-China rivalry. Since taking office as Germany's chancellor, Angela Merkel visited China 12 times, making her the Western leader with the most visits to China during her tenure. On October 13, 2021, Merkel held her last video call with Xi Jinping as the German chancellor, and both sides expressed their reluctance to part ways. In Chinese state media, Merkel was referred to as an old friend of the Chinese people, making her the first Western leader in the 2020s to earn this title. However, after Merkel's departure from German politics, Sino-German relations have steadily cooled. Merkel's successor, Chancellor Olaf Scholz, took office in 2021 and promised to change Germany's relationship with China. His government emphasized a stronger focus on China's human rights issues and worked actively to reduce Germany's economic dependence on China. Additionally, Germany has placed the security of the Taiwan Strait within the broader framework of NATO and the EU. In recent years, concerns have mounted in Germany over various actions by China, including threats to Taiwan, persecution of Uyghurs, the crackdown on Hong Kong's democratic movement, and Beijing's assertiveness in the South China Sea. Germany has grown increasingly wary of the dangers China poses to global security. The Russian invasion of Ukraine in early 2022 further widened the rift between Germany and China. Xi Jinping's administration did not condemn Putin's aggression, but instead covertly supported Russia by providing strategic materials, further straining Sino-German relations. In September 2022, during the G7 trade ministers meeting in Germany, German Vice-Chancellor and Economy Minister Robert Habeck remarked, "The time of naivete towards China is over." Bernhard Barsch, from the Berlin-based think tank Merix, explained that for a long time there was a belief that integrating China into the global economy would lead to its alignment with the West, not only economically but also politically. This belief misled both Europe and the US, as well as many Chinese people. Under Xi Jinping, however, China has sought to reshape the global order with its own authoritarian system and impose new rules. China and its international partners have often been described as strange bedfellows. Commentators now suggest that in the case of Germany and China, they seem to be in separate rooms entirely. On June 14, 2023, Germany released its first-ever National Security Strategy Report, labeling China as a partner, competitor, and systemic rival. The report bluntly stated that rivalry and competition have increased in the past years. China is trying in various ways to remold the existing rules-based international order, and is asserting a regionally dominant position with ever more rigor, acting time and again to counter our interests and values. Chancellor Scholz emphasized that Germany's aim is not to decouple from Beijing, but to reduce critical dependencies in future. This report was referred to by the media as a gift for Chinese Premier Li Qiang. A few days after Germany's National Security Strategy report was released, Li visited Berlin, but Sino-German relations had already significantly changed. During his visit, Li Qiang sought to restore China's standing in the European market. In meetings with executives from Siemens, Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, and BMW, he urged the business community to cooperate, stating that the global economy is interconnected, and not cooperating is the biggest risk, not developing is the greatest insecurity. Zsuzsa Anna Ferenczi, a former European Parliament political advisor, told BBC China that Beijing has long employed a divide-and-conquer strategy with the EU, working to pull some countries closer while isolating others, which has proven effective. However, the Russia-Ukraine war has altered this dynamic. Ferenczi explained, Europe is now in a new reality, with the 27 EU member states becoming more united. Xi Jinping's support for Putin and refusal to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine marked a turning point in EU-China relations, intensifying suspicion towards China. Despite Li Qiang's efforts, Germany remained steadfast in its determination to reduce its economic dependence on China. In August, Deutsche Welle reported that trade data from the first half of the year showed that German-American trade had surpassed German-Chinese trade, ending China's 8-year run as Germany's largest trading partner. Meanwhile, Germany has been strengthening its ties with Taiwan's advanced semiconductor industry, now a crucial factor for Germany's economic development. Assistant professor at Taiwan's National Defense University, Chun Chi-tong, noted, recently TSMC set up a plant in Germany, with the German Chancellor and key officials attending the event. This highlights the importance of Taiwan-Germany relations. Germany is also using this opportunity to demonstrate the significance of peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait for Germany and the world. Public opinion suggests that cooperation between Germany and Taiwan's semiconductor industry has bolstered Germany's commitment to safeguarding Taiwan's security. While the passage of German warships through the Taiwan Strait has not intended to provoke China, it clearly showed Germany's alignment with the US and Europe in maintaining the security of the Taiwan Strait. In recent years, China's increasingly aggressive stance in the Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea has forced some countries to revise their strategies, leading to a growing military presence in the Indo-Pacific region. U.S. warships regularly navigate between the East and South China Seas, passing through the Taiwan Strait based on international maritime law. As the threat of a Chinese invasion grows, in April 2022, the U.S. Navy's USS Sampson sailed through the Taiwan Strait, reaffirming America's commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific. This action garnered support from countries like Australia, which expressed its willingness to follow suit, though it also provoked strong reactions from the Chinese government. In June 2022, during the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore, the then-Chinese Defense Minister Wei Fenghe issued a strong statement in front of defense ministers from the US, Japan, Australia, and other nations. He declared that if Taiwan sought independence in any form, China would fight at all costs, regardless of the price. At the same time, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbing responded to media inquiries by asserting that China has sovereign rights over the Taiwan Strait. Wang stated, "There's no such thing as international waters under international maritime law. Certain countries claim the Taiwan Strait is international waters to create an excuse for manipulating the Taiwan issue and threatening China's sovereignty and security. China firmly opposes this." Wei Fenghe and Wang Wenbing's fierce rhetoric became an international focal point, sparking widespread discussion. In response, U.S. State Department spokesperson Ned Price reaffirmed that the Taiwan Strait is an international waterway protected by international law, including freedom of navigation and overflight. He emphasized that U.S. military forces would continue to pass through the Taiwan Strait. The Taiwan Strait ranges from approximately 70 nautical miles at its narrowest to around 220 nautical miles at its widest. Dr. Su Ziyun, a research fellow at Taiwan's Institute for National Defense and Security Research, explained that international law's definition of high seas comes from the 1958 Convention on the High Seas. This was further clarified by the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, which defines territorial waters as extending 12 nautical miles from a country's baseline. Beyond this, the seas are considered international waters. According to Su, Beijing's claim that there's no concept of international waters is merely a semantic game. Analysts suggest that Beijing's attempt to stir up debates over sovereignty in the Taiwan Strait underscores the strategic importance of the region within the Indo-Pacific. Ian Easton, senior director at the Washington-based think tank Project 2049 Institute, indicated that China's claims to sovereignty over the Taiwan Strait signal that Xi Jinping is planning to alter the status quo. Taiwanese military expert and former naval captain Lu Lishi noted, "While the Taiwan Strait may have been a natural barrier in the past, the People's Liberation Army, PLA, has rapidly expanded its naval fleet, turning the waters into a potential springboard for military action." China's tough warnings have not deterred other countries. The United Kingdom, Canada, France, and Australia have all sailed through the Taiwan in freedom of navigation operations, prompting repeated protests from Beijing. On November 1, 2023, Canada's Royal Navy frigate HMCS Ottawa sailed through the Taiwan Strait alongside the U.S. Navy's USS Rafael Peralta as part of routine operations in international waters. According to Reuters, this marked the third joint U.S.-Canadian transit of the Taiwan Strait since June 2023. Both the U.S. and Canadian military stressed that their navigation complied with international law. Canadian media reported that on June 3, 2023, HMCS Montreal, a Halifax-class frigate, and the U.S. Navy's USS Chung Hun, a Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, passed through the Taiwan Strait together. During this transit, a Chinese warship dangerously approached the USS Chung Hun, accelerating and cutting across the American ship's path at a distance of less than 150 yards. It forced the U.S. destroyer to slow down to avoid a collision. The Canadian military criticized the Chinese maneuver as highly dangerous and unprofessional. At the time, Canada's Defense Minister, Anita Anand, publicly announced that Canada would increase its naval presence in the Asia-Pacific region, raising the number of naval vessels patrolling the region from 2 to 3. She emphasized that these ships would continue navigating not only through the Taiwan Strait, but also in the East and South China Seas. Anand remarked, "China is an increasingly disruptive global power that increasingly disregards international rules and norms. Our approach is clear and responsible. We will always defend our national interests and the rules-based international order." On November 24, 2023, the Royal Australian Navy also publicly announced that its frigate HMAS Toowoomba had transited international waters in the Taiwan Strait. This came just a week after a provocative encounter with a Chinese warship. While the Toowoomba was operating in Japan's exclusive economic zone, Australian divers were attempting to remove fishing nets from the ship's propeller when a Chinese vessel approached and used sonar pulses, resulting in injuries to the divers. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese criticized China for its dangerous and unprofessional behavior. Taiwan's former representative to Australia, Lin Song-Kwan, remarked in an interview with Voice of America that China's sonar attack on the Australian warship reflected Beijing's extreme dissatisfaction with the AUKUS security pact between Australia, the US, and the UK. He argued that China was trying to intimidate Australia into distancing itself from the US, but this would ultimately backfire. Instead, the incident was likely to heighten Australia's concerns about China and further strengthen the deterrent power of the AUKUS alliance, even as Australia worked to restore its economic relationship with China. In recent developments, Chinese state broadcaster CCTV aired a special documentary titled Tempering, which featured footage of a Chinese J-16 fighter jet intercepting an Australian P-8A reconnaissance plane. The video showed the J-16 conducting a dangerous intercept in what was described as international airspace over the South or East China Sea. The Chinese fighter not only released flares but also performed a precise lateral maneuver, cutting in front of the Australian plane's nose, creating a dramatic and dangerous situation. Despite China's aggressive posturing aimed at showcasing its military strength, it has been unable to prevent Western countries from forming defensive alliances in the Asia-Pacific. However, such displays have invigorated Chinese netizens. One report on NetEase claimed that the aerial encounter had caused significant psychological stress to Australian pilots, who reportedly needed counseling after the incident. Chinese netizens expressed their excitement, with some commenting, "When we are truly powerful, we will remember this moment and go practice freedom of navigation in their waters." Similar tensions have affected the Netherlands. Dutch company ASML's most advanced EUV lithography machines, which are crucial for semiconductor manufacturing, have been banned from use in China, while Taiwan's TSMC, the world's largest contract chip maker, remains the top consumer of these machines. Since EUV technology was developed in 2016, ASML has delivered over 200 units to customers outside of China, with TSMC purchasing more than any other chip manufacturer. Currently, around 90% of the world's most advanced chips are produced in Taiwan. In May 2024, the Dutch Royal Navy joined the Freedom of Navigation operations in the Taiwan Strait when its HNLMS Tromp, a de Zeven Provincial-class frigate, sailed through the strait for the first time. This move, part of the US-led initiative, infuriated Beijing. In retaliation, Chinese fighter jets engaged in dangerously close maneuvers against Dutch naval helicopters over the East China Sea, prompting the Dutch Ministry of Defense to condemn the action as creating a potentially unsafe situation. Analysts argue that China's belligerent and domineering behavior will only lead more nations to conduct freedom of navigation operations in the Taiwan Strait. Beijing's attempts to impose its own rules in defiance of international law, they say, are ultimately futile.